This episode of Bullet Heaven was made possible with a copy of the game provided by Dispatch Games. Success is probably best known for the Cotton series, but many other notable shooting games have also been produced by this developer in the past. Sandvane, for example, was one of the greatest surprises on Bullet Heaven in our series history. But another series also has a decent following, and its latest installment has landed on PC, PS4, and the Nintendo Switch, which is where we're picking up.
Psyvariar Delta is a modernized update to Psyvariar Revision, a vertically scrolling shooting game that itself came from Psyvariar Medium Unit, and all of which are included in this release. The original game saw release starting on Taito GNet hardware back in March 2000. They would also be released to the PlayStation 2 in Japan and Europe as Psyvariar Complete. Both versions have the same features right down to the PAL version 60Hz mode. So how does Delta shake things up? Let's take a closer look.
Psyvariar is a game that may not click with a lot of players at first. Enemies can be killed off fairly easily, and often the stages are a little on the short side. It can be really easy for players of any skill level to finish the game on a single credit if they don't know about the finer aspects of the game. Of course, these easy clears are often the result of critical conditions not being met, and that's why we're here. So let's get into it.
Players begin the game with a ton of immediate choice. Players choose either Medium Unit's Axion Mu, Revision's Axion R, or, if the Psybattler DLC is present, the Blanche Mecha. Players then choose the mode of play, the original arcade Medium Unit, its follow-up, Revision, or the all-new Delta mode. Finally, 3 different soundtracks can be chosen from either Medium Unit, Revision, or Delta. A fourth, Psybattler Arrange, can also be selected when using Blanche.
Psyvariar controls as you might expect of any given vertically scrolling shooting game, with 8-way movement at the core of its controls. Pressing the A button or equivalent on a Switch controller of any kind will fire the player's main shots, and a bomber attack can be deployed with the B button. That's essentially it, but of course, there's much more to it.
If players wiggle their movement back and forth, their ship will begin to spin into a rolling motion. In a lot of ways, this is similar to Triangle Services 12 Zeal, which we took a look at in episode 84 and EX16. But in this case, when rolling, the player's fire will be focused immediately forward and greatly enhanced. The player's speed will also be boosted coming out of the roll, which can be chained in a way that can get players around the screen faster. The player's hitbox will also be reduced, making it easier to avoid bullets. This is a helpful way to dish a ton of damage to enemies, large and small. Players can also press any shoulder button to automatically roll their ship for much greater precision.
Here's where things get more complicated. Grazing up against bullets will award the player with experience that will increase the player's level. This is known as the buzz system, and it's an integral part of not only scoring, but progressing to the final stages of the game. Rolling will enhance the area by which the buzz is counted, allowing for players to rack up experience even easier. Buzz experience will be greater during this stage, but much lower during bosses, so gaining as many levels as possible before then is the best approach. A gauge showing the player's level progression can be found underneath the score, along with the player's level. Taking the buzz system into account, enemy destruction isn't necessarily enough to make the best progress in the game, and if a player's level is too low at a specific part of the stage set, the game will end without the player seeing the true last boss.
Anytime the player's level increases, they will be rewarded with a brief period of invincibility indicated by a flash of energy and a shrinking aura present as long as invincibility is active. Since this can allow players to charge through dense clouds of bullets, the player can often gain level after level when doing so, allowing for more buzz and more experience to be gained. This means that players will do better if they don't destroy enemies right away, allowing for more shots to fill the screen. Of course, care should obviously be taken. Mistiming the invincibility to maximize buzz can often lead to an untimely death.
The player ship also morphs and transforms at certain points with new bullet patterns as players climb higher and higher in level. When the ship transforms, a larger, brighter flash of energy will occur. A huge amount of trial and error is probably going to be required to figure out what enemies to leave behind and which to kill to ensure maximum buzz is achieved, and the most experience can be gained.
Of course, killing off enemies also grants experience too, so buzzing as much as possible and taking out the opposition at the most optimal is always the best way to go. Depending on their performance, players will be able to select more or fewer stages to take on next. With harder stages available, the higher the player's level is. Additionally, this allows players to be a little more tactical, as the boss's power level will be less or greater depending on the difficulty, even if it's the same boss. The player's ship will be less effective against a boss with a higher level if the player's level is low, but lower level versions can be dispatched much faster.
This really makes for a game that kind of becomes the ultimate in risk-reward. Charging into a huge dense swath of bullets is nothing short of gutsy, especially when the player's period of invincibility is so brief. Of course, depending on the ship chosen, leveling up will be harder or easier. Playing with the medium unit's Axion move, for example, allows for any given bullet to be buzzed only once, as was the case in the original game. This makes for less overall experience. Playing with Revised and Delta's Axion R allows for the same bullets to be grazed more than once, so using Axion R makes for an interesting approach to medium unit's 6-stage set. The Axion R, for us, was the most balanced ship here, with Axion Mu presenting the greatest challenge.
Of course, Psyvariar's Blanche makes for a totally different experience. While the buzz mechanics are largely the same, Blanche has the ability to aim shots in any direction on screen. A barrier-style shield also adds a layer of defense for players to avoid death. If a player gets hit, the shield will shatter, saving the player from being blasted into the aether. This shield will recharge after a brief period of time, adding a constant layer of protection perfect for new players. Like the Axion R, bullets can also be buzzed more than once.
As if this radical style of play wasn't enough, players cannot earn extends throughout the entire game. Instead, bomber extends are awarded for every ship transformation at specific levels, and any time a player achieves a 100 destruction rate in any given stage. This allows for players to be able to better avoid some of the more dense or challenging patterns in a pinch more often as the bomber clears shots from the screen.
Psyvariar Delta offers players a huge amount of gameplay. Depending on the version selected at game start and the player's performance, the game will last anywhere from 6 to 8 stages. Both single player and co-op is available, though each player must use the same ship. Additionally, score attack modes and the awesome Replay Mode Plus can be played at any time.
Replay Mode Plus is a really engaging score attack mode that has players pit themselves against other players' high-scoring replays in a bid to construct a high score for themselves through a mix-and-match stage set. Any stage can be chosen in this manner, which makes this one of the most flexible score attack modes we've ever seen. It's definitely a mode we're sure to come back to again and again.
Really, the amount of choice here is pretty staggering and should present a game that will last players of any skill level a very, very long time. Best of all, it's fun and engaging the whole time.
Scoring high in Psyvariar Delta will hinge directly on how well the player utilizes the buzz system to their advantage. Obviously, maintaining a high buzz will keep the good times rolling. Pairing this with tactical enemy destruction should give the player a good score on any given stage. Of course, the highest scores will always be achieved using the Axion R in Revised or Delta on account of the enhanced buzz system and extra stages at play.
The end of any given stage will also present the player with a number of bonuses based on various factors. A destruction rate of up to 100 can be achieved, which is multiplied by 10,000 points to produce the destruction bonus. Meanwhile, the buzz bonus takes the total buzz for the stage and multiplies it by 1,000. These two scores are then added to the stage score to form the stage total.
These rules are basically all players need to take into consideration when playing Psyvariar Delta, and they more or less apply to any mode of play at the time. Psyvariar Delta also features leaderboards for full game score attack and replay mode plus for medium unit, revised, and Delta. The top 100 scores are browsable, but the player's position still shows at the bottom of the window.
These score attack options extend the replay of Psyvariar Delta even more than its absurdly flexible normal game mode, and should allow for score chasers to power their way to a high score for everyone to see.
Psyvariar Delta has a very strong presentation in the grand scheme of things. There are some very striking changes in some aspects between all three game versions and other very subtle ones, but in general, it works, and it works well.
Though Psyvariar 2 is arguably a much better looking game overall, there's still a lot to like about Psyvariar Delta, and its 3 included variants. While the backgrounds can be simple and drab, they also have nice, sharp textures that keep them from getting too muddy. But other stages, like the city, look pretty amazing too.
Of course, the models in Psyvariar Delta are a little on the simple side, but the frame rate is nice and steady, blasting by at a solid 60 frames per second the vast majority of the time. Of course, this could make some of the more dense bullet patterns a little difficult to read, but at least there are no real technical hitches here. Well, except for some of the backgrounds that exhibit an odd warping as the perspective changes, especially in Stage 1.
The sound is definitely a cut above, especially since there are not 1, not 2, but up to 4 complete soundtracks, each with great standout pieces that set each stage so well. Meanwhile, the sound effects for everything from shots to explosions to menu selections never come off as shrill or annoying, which is always a great thing. And of course, the level up indicator is super satisfying to hear, especially when a ton of shots are crowding in with little space to move.
Psyvariar Delta features a Tate mode that allows players using a vertical monitor or something like the flip grip an opportunity to blow up the screen size in its original aspect ratio to better see what's going on. But when playing in a horizontal orientation, extra widgets are added to show the player's progress, including per stage score and progression, invincibility, boss status and time, experience and experience modifiers, level progression, and more. This layout has many different forms and can be selected to the player's taste.
The player can even toggle various visual cues to better show where enemy hit zones, bullet collision points, and buzz radii exist to help in getting through unscathed. It's just another way that Psyvariar Delta makes the series just a little more approachable for players old and new.
As always, various other options like game difficulty, control setups, audio and visual tweaks, and more can be selected in the main options menu for players to change to their liking. Add to all of that a clean, easy to see and follow UI, and Psyvariar Delta's presentation comes out looking pretty good. So, how does Psyvariar Delta stack up? Let's take a look. The subtleties to Psyvariar Delta's controls may not be especially evident at first, but they are some of the most refined we've seen.
Psyvariar Delta's control allows for the kind of precision needed for the daring buzz combos required to reach advanced stages.
Psyvariar Delta definitely requires some skill to see the final areas, but it's very rewarding in the end.
But at the same time, Psyvariar Delta is also accommodating to newcomers, with an easier, albeit less satisfying, 1cc possible with minimal effort and fast kills.
It's pretty amazing how many stages there are in Psyvariar Delta and how many different ways there are to take them all on.
Extra replay in the form of score attack and online leaderboards for Replay Mode Plus take Psyvariar Delta over the top for length.
Some aspects of the visuals are weak, but on the whole, Psyvariar looks pretty great.
It also bombs along at 60 frames per second, making for a smooth shooting experience.
Psyvariar Delta has just a ton of music to be experienced. The Psy Battler DLC arranged tracks are also pretty amazing as well.
The sound effects are also non-invasive and never come off as annoying or piercing.
The idea of leveling up a ship through bullet grazing is one thing, but taking advantage of invincibility while it happens to bring this simple mechanic to the extreme is what makes Psyvariar so fun to play.
The addition of the awesome Replay Mode Plus, online score attack, and co-op gameplay makes Psyvariar a must-play shooter this generation.
Psyvariar Delta weighs in at around $30 but offers players a huge amount of content to play.
Add in fun, addictive gameplay, co-op, and those sweet score attack modes, and Psyvariar's value comes out looking pretty great.
Psyvariar is a series that I didn't exactly get, but playing this release has really opened my eyes to what makes these games a must-play. With a new appreciation for the mechanics here, we are definitely going to dig deep into Psyvariar 2 soon. But as far as Psyvariar Delta goes, this is a fantastic game that goes a long way with what it offers, and it gets a 4.75 out of 5. You can get a copy of Psyvariar Delta on Steam, PSN, Switch eShop, and even at retail today. I gotta get me more of that sweet, sweet buzz. I guess we need to get those super light releases and those regular and special complete versions on PS2, don't we?
I'm sorry, what? What do we need?
Yeah, the whole Psyvariar pantheon. We needs it!
Why are there so many? How does this sound?